Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ASICS Father's Day celebration. My name is John Gregoric, and as a dad, I am deeply humbled and honored to serve as moderator for this very special conversation. I've been very fortunate to be a member of the ASICS family for over 25 years, and currently I'm a player on our amazing sports marketing team. It's been a blessing over the years to come to know and befriend so many fantastic fathers. It's always great when being around the office or on a run. I get to hear about babies on the way, newborn sons and daughters, birthdays, t-ball, softball, track meets, graduations, marriages, grandchildren, and so many other family milestones. Tonight, we have three of these wonderful fathers here with us who will be sharing their dad journeys. One of these men I have the distinct pleasure of daily interaction with, as he is our Director of Sports Marketing, Ben Cesar. Also joining us is Sean Condon, Vice President of Omnichannel, and Paul Lukovich, the keeper of our books, the Chief Financial Officer. Good evening, guys.
Hey, John.
Hope the grills are ready for the grills, barbecues, all ready for Sunday?
All ready for Sunday. The dad jokes are ready to go too.
Oh, okay, here we go. Well, it's okay. If it's okay with you guys, I'll get the ball rolling and share that I'm the father of four children. Our daughter Rachel is 34. We also have a son, Johnny, and his wife, Amy, and they're 30. And our son, Patrick, who is looking down on us, would be 25 years old this year. Ben, I'll head over to you if that's okay. I've met your wonderful children. Maybe you could share with the group a little bit about your children.
Thank you, John. Hello, Sean and Paul. Very happy to share this stage with you. I'm a father of three kids. Malia is my oldest, 18 years old, senior in high school, graduating in 2 days. Avery is the middle child, and he is 16 years old. And Naomi is our youngest, and she is 13. And it's been great 18 years with Malia and the two who followed after, Avery and Naomi. It's been tremendous to be a dad to three kids. I'm the third of three boys, and to have three kids is growing up with two older brothers, and to see my kids do what my brothers and I did is pretty fascinating on a day-to-day basis.
Good stuff. How about you, Paul?
On our first date, my wife and I discussed having four kids, and we delivered the plan, as all finance people try to do. We have boy, girl, 18, 16, 14, and 12. And, really blessed. My wife and I joke that we did our more than our share of maintaining the population and replacing ourselves. And, we're very lucky to have a often loud, never boring household.
Sean?
Wow, that's something I can definitely tell you. We did not discuss kids on our first date, so it's slower than Paul does. But I'm fortunate enough to be blessed with two daughters. So my oldest daughter, Juliana, she's turning 3 in August. And then our youngest daughter, Annabelle, is 1.5. So I got two youngins on my hands. And I guess a fun fact about my family, I am the first Condon to produce girls or daughters. So everybody else in my family's always had boys. So it was kind of a shock when I actually had two daughters, but super proud of it, if you can't tell. But yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So good. You can tell why I was talking about those graduations and all the different milestones. Sean, we'll stick with you. And I remember you meeting your little baby daughter before COVID, and how proud you were. Becoming a father changes our lives in so many wonderful ways. Since you were the most recent father, what was it like when you first became a father?
Yeah, it's exciting, nerve-wracking. You name every emotion in the book, I had it. I know you guys have all experienced it. But like most things, I don't think I was really prepared for it. I don't know if you ever truly are prepared for it. I think becoming a parent really changed my entire world. So it's something that you really can't prepare for, no matter how many books you read. I can tell you I read almost all of them. I can't tell you that I remember any of them. It's just kind of like you learn as you go. Got advice from everybody I could imagine under the sun. It's just a tremendous experience, something that life can't prepare you for, that you kind of learn and figure out as you go. But from a preparedness standpoint, for me, really, I think where I was prepared was the ability to give unconditional love to my children and my willingness to do anything that I can for them. I think that that's really where I was prepared. I think if you talk about all the traditional parenting methods, I definitely threw all that out as soon as my first daughter was born, and then again with the second daughter. So really just kind of winging it, but I feel really good about it. I think most people learn as they go. So yeah.
How about you, Ben? What was it like when you first became a dad?
Gosh, I wanted to have our firstborn to be a girl, and we didn't find out what the sex of any of our three kids were until they were born. So, to find out that our first was a girl was like the very first emotion, outside of making sure that Christy was okay and that Malia was healthy. But I think it was more, as Sean said, you're never really prepared. And, being Filipino, very, very large family. And until you held your own child, it was definitely, it was a different feeling because now it was your own. And so probably the big change really came professionally, because at that time, I was coaching at UC Irvine, coaching track at UC Irvine, and it really changed my, in a sense, trajectory because, as a coach, you're having to recruit quite a bit at night, and having a newborn at home, your priorities changed. So probably that was one thing that as Malia grew to, a year old, 2 years old, and then Avery was born, all of a sudden it was like the change was I wanted to be more with the family rather than, being work-minded when you got home, because recruiting took place at night. And so that was when, that probably was a big change for me that I didn't know, because, when it was just Christy and myself, she was a teacher at the time, she'd work at night, I'm recruiting at night. Once the kids were there, it was like, wow, maybe I need to look for something different because I want to be with the kids when I'm at home.
Ben, I gotta tell you, you're a brave soul. You went without knowing the gender for all your kids. I was the total opposite. I had to know.
Yeah. Yeah, and similar to what you said, Avery was, my family's pretty much all girls. My brother has 3 girls. My cousins all gave birth to girls, and Avery, my son, is the only one who is a boy amongst all the cousins.
So, Paul, you said you had this discussion very early. What was it like when the actual moment came and you became a dad?
So my transition to fatherhood was abrupt. I think that's the best word I can use to describe it. We were in the hospital, and of course, being a first-time mother, first time giving birth, the nurse, my wife was not making any noise because she has like the pain tolerance of a spy. And so the nurse was like, "Oh, honey, you're going to be here all day. Why don't you try to go to the bathroom?" So she's in the bathroom and she's like, "Paul, can you get the nurse?" So I go to the door and I'm like, "Excuse me, can we get our nurse?" And then she said, "I can feel the head." And she sounded panicked. So of course I yell out of the hallway, "We need help." And I run the 3 steps into the bathroom, and she's standing at the sink and her legs are shaking and the baby falls out. And I dive on the floor, and about an inch above the ground, I catch him in my hands. I'm a goalie, a hockey goalie. I literally say, luckily I caught this one, but I caught him about an inch above the ground. And I'm lying on the floor. You can imagine the scene. And I look up over my shoulder, and there's 4 nurses standing in the doorway, just complete shock. And the oldest nurse, completely deadpan, she says, "Well, that's never happened before." And I'm lying on the floor. I'm like, what do I do now? But I'll never forget that moment, that brief moment when I was holding this baby in my hands and looking at him, and just, it was changes your life. And I think that the one thing that struck me the most was that was a moment that I think I really, really viscerally believed in God. So I think the transition to fatherhood was abrupt and life-changing, but wonderful.
Wow, that's beautiful. I think the Bruins could use you right about now.
Yeah, they are pretty hard up for a goalie.
Yeah, we're in trouble. Paul, if you don't mind, we'll stay with you. And I know it's kind of a probably can go on forever on this one, but what does being a dad mean to you?
I think the first two words come to mind are responsibility and safety. I think you go from a place where, you make decisions for yourself, and, everything you do is about yourself. You get married, and there's more than one opinion about how you're going to spend your day. But once you have kids, it's, you feel a lot of responsibility for, their activities, how they grow up, keeping them safe, but also, mixed with the idea that that you have to give them freedom to experience things and to fail and to fall down and hurt themselves and to grow up. So it's I think it's about finding balance. You want to protect them, but you have to be able to also let go. So I think for me, being a dad is trying to get that balance right.
How about you, Sean? How these last few years, what's it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's something I learned pretty early in my childhood, and kind of the example that my parents set for me. It's really just about providing unconditional love and support for my daughters and trying to be a good example for them. In my childhood, I was very fortunate to have parents that allowed me the freedom to explore and make choices on my own. They were always there to provide guidance and support, but in the end of the day, they allowed me to be myself, and they supported me along the way, even if they didn't agree with it at the time or they felt that I should do otherwise. And I think that I've always tried to carry that in, and that's really what fatherhood means to me, especially for my two daughters, is just being able to give them the same thing that my parents and my father gave me.
Man, this is supposed to be a bro thing, but I'm going to start crying pretty soon. You guys are killing me. Ben, what does being a dad mean to you?
I take the two words that come out that both Sean and Paul shared. I know Paul shared too, but the responsibility and providing, right? Those are the two for me. You want to provide for the kids more than what I grew up with, but at the same time also giving them, the in a sense, what I, especially when I talk to my son is, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made. I'm going to let you know what those were, and so you don't have to go through that. But at the same time, he has to go through those mistakes. But at least being able to give him, hey, this is what I went through. So, if you can take a little bit of it and then take it for yourself and see how you can learn from it. But yeah, I think the responsibility once you have kids and then providing for them is, you hear it like, we're working for our kids, so we're setting them up. But I think just to be able to take what I saw my parents gave to me, and Christy and I dated for many years, so I've seen what her parents gave to her as we started dating, and so seeing what those sets of parents gave to us, and then take it to what we're providing to the kids now is the important part, because it's definitely whether it's religion, whether it's school, and the extracurricular activities, showing them how important it is. Being able to go to church together, and because once they go off to school, that's no longer going to be an us thing. That's going to be what are they going to do? Well, how are they going to take that for themselves? So, hopefully we're giving them the life lessons within the home. So when they go outside of the home, then we provided with them life lessons that they either take and say, okay, I want this to be part of my life, or not. But at least we've shaped them to be able to make decisions for themselves.
Ben, I've had the pleasure of being with you and your children, and we've had many conversations about, being husbands and fathers in our families and the importance of that. I've been at, events with you, with your children there, and I've seen that balance. Is there anything that you take from your family life and bring it to your work at ASICS? Or conversely, is there things from ASICS, their work life, that you might bring home?
I think it's, this is my second tour with the brand, and I think what this brand has given me, and is being able to create a nice work life and life work balance. I think there was a time when you're connected to this and you can't put it down. And so I think now, as the kids have gotten older, I look at it and I put it down all the time, right? Because I see them on their phones and I know how I was, where I can honestly say where I've missed out on some because of this. And and a lot of it was because of the work environment I was in. And to where now I think I can see from what and my kids are older. I would go back to Sean's kids' ages, the two girls, in a heartbeat. And people will say, you're crazy. You're almost over. You're almost done, right? I mean, the fall is saying 18, 16, 14, and 12. You're on the other side of the hill. But I would go back in time and take what I missed out on because I was so ingrained with work and trying to be successful and take those years back. So I think I've learned over time that it's not about what you do at work, but it's about sharing what you do at work with your kids, because then they can truly have an understanding of what you do and what you're doing is for them. So I think really it's the lessons learned of the past and how I'm trying to bring it back now.
How about you, Paul? At work-home balance. I clearly know your family is number one. How does it interact with your work with us at ASICS?
Yeah, it's funny. I would agree with Ben. Like for me, it was the lesson that you have to learn is how to prioritize your time. When you're single, you can throw time at any problem. If you're working on your budget and it's not going well, you can just stay till 12:30, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning. No big deal. It's just it affects you, and if that's what it takes to get it done and do a great job and get ahead in your career, then that's what you do. But I think when you become a husband and a father, you have to learn how to work smarter and how to still be able to get kind of the results and still be successful in your career, because you need that to provide for your family. But how do you learn to work smarter and prioritize your time so that you can really get the best of both? I think that's the challenge, and really I think as a father, as you grow through the process, that's what you get better at.
Great wisdom from these two older fathers. Sean, how's it been for you striking that balance with your babies?
Yeah, I mean, I think I go back to what Ben says, right? Like I've learned to really appreciate the moment and being in the moment. And I don't wish these days away at all. Like no matter how frustrating they get when you're trying to do sleep training, I think we've all been there. You guys know what that's probably like. I'm going through it right now. The lack of sleep that you get when you have young children. It's really made me prioritize my time, to Paul's point. But I think the biggest thing that changed for me was striking more of that balance, right? I can tell you every morning I bring my kids to daycare. That time is blocked off. I don't take meetings. I won't take phone calls. It's my time with them. Same thing in the evening before they go to bed, 5 to 7 p.m. They go to bed pretty early, so I'm still on that train. I get to spend it with them, and that's dedicated time, and that's the most important thing to me, because I know that sooner or later I'm going to be in Ben's shoes, Paul's shoes, and your shoes, and I won't have the chance to do that stuff. They're going to be off on their own. They're going to be making their own decisions. I'd say one thing that definitely changed a lot for me was I've always been driven to succeed in my career, but now the drive is different, right? Like now I'm focused on succeeding and providing for them. It's not about myself anymore. And I think they both mentioned that as well, both Paul and Ben. So I think that it also changed my drive. Is there's so much more responsibility because I'm not single anymore. It isn't just about my own financial stability or my own work goals. It's really about providing for them and providing them a good life and setting a good example. So that drive, when you shift into that, it completely changes your mindset. And it kind of sounds counterintuitive when you're saying, you're spending less time working and all that other stuff. But to Paul's point, it's just how you spend that time is just more and more important now, because you want to maximize it when you're at work so that you can maximize it at home as well.
Yeah, and I think we all agree. It's what kind of what we're all saying. I mean, we are blessed to have ASICS. Our family is definitely prioritizes us being able to be dads and be, husbands and fathers, and so it's truly it's an awesome thing that we're able to put focus on with our brand. So Father's Day can be difficult for some, and I want to acknowledge that right up front. Is there something that you learned from your father, Sean, that you can share with the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'm in a unique position, and I know not everybody's in this position. I'm still lucky enough to have both of my parents around, so I'm fortunate enough to still get phone calls from them, see my phone light up with both their names, still get to see them on a regular basis. They still live in the area that we live in. So I do recognize that I'm fortunate in that sense. I think the things that really two things that I learned from my father. First was being the value of hard work and dedication, and coupling that with sacrifice. My dad didn't have the opportunity to go to college. He worked a very, very blue collar job in transportation for his entire career, and he actually worked it with one company. He'd often be gone long periods overnight, and that's what was required from his job. But I know his job was hard, and I know it required all this, and it required a lot of sacrifices for him to provide for our family and to give me opportunities that he didn't get growing up, which is something I think Ben mentioned earlier. But despite his schedule, what I did really learn from my dad is that he always made an effort to be present and be there in everything that he possibly could. So even if it meant sacrificing his own sleep because he'd been gone overnights and I had football practice in the morning or a game on a Sunday, he'd always be there, regardless of what that meant for him. And then I think the second thing, and I didn't really realize this until I got a little bit older, and maybe I'm still realizing it today, is that no matter what hardships, my father was going through or our family were going through, he never really let it show. He always tried to shield me from that. Of course, he was always honest, but he really wanted me to focus on being a kid, growing up, developing, all of those things. And then lo and behold, when you grow up, you start to realize the different things that your parents were going through, or your father was going through at the time, because you start dealing with those as well. And I think that's one thing that he always did really well with me was he kept his composure, and you never knew when something was wrong. And he was really being the rock for our family. So those are probably two of the biggest things I've taken away from my father.
Beautiful. And I know you and I have spoken about your dad. You shared with me his passing at a relatively young age. What are some of the things you learned from your dad?
I think probably my dad passed in 2009, and it's probably just a sacrifice that he gave from his life in order for my brothers and I to have the opportunities that we ultimately benefited from. Moving from the Philippines to the United States was ultimately, I know it must have been hard, because I remember at the time, he left his mom and his family in order for us to have a better education. And we were very comfortable in the Philippines, but I think my mom and my dad saw that in order for us to be better, they had to make this decision. So I think when you see that, and then now you see your kids, what sacrifices do you make for them in order to be able to get to that next level? So that's probably one thing that, I don't talk about as much, but definitely feel it.
Paul?
Yeah, I can relate, Ben. I lost my father. I mean, I was lucky I had him well into my adulthood. I lost him at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, so in May 2020. And, he also, immigrated to give us a better life, to give his kids a better life. And, I think what I learned from him was really to kind of be an example for your kids, and the way that you conduct yourself in life is important. And, you want to be a good example for your kids. And, he, even in really stressful times, he maintained his sense of humor. And, I think he could, I think he didn't ever sort of let things get too heavy or too difficult. Just, again, I think just kind of being a good example for your kids. And, people say that, I hear my kids saying things and they, it's like they're repeating things that you say. I think it's even more impactful when you see your kids in a situation in life and you see them handle it in a way that makes you feel proud. And, and I think that's what the best thing you can do for your kids is just to be a good example, conduct yourself well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Paul, there's a lot in our with ASICS, our family, we have new dads and expectant dads, and we have moms and young moms and dads and older moms and dads. Any wisdom that you've learned from being a dad that you could share with the group?
Yeah, so I have like an amazing wife, and something that we started doing relatively early with our kids was we did kid dates because we have four of them, and there's only two of us. And I think in order to help build that relationship with your kids and to get that intimate time alone, so one parent would take one kid and go off for an afternoon and do something. Sometimes it was simple as getting an ice cream and having a really unhealthy meal at a an ice cream parlor. And sometimes it's going away and doing archery, which one of my kids really loves. But it's even, I think, when kids are older, and for my 18-year-old, we did one a couple weeks ago, one of our kid dates a couple weeks ago. You'll be surprised at how even for an 18-year-old, they're still a kid and they still value it. So I think finding that alone time with your kids one-on-one is really, really valuable.
Yeah, it's nothing like it. I think that's great advice. Sean, if we can go to you, and any wisdom you could share with those young parents out there?
Yeah, for me, I guess I'm still developing all the wisdom that I can share, but I think for me, it's similar to the lines that Paul's saying. When you become a new father, you go through, your kids go through cycles, right? Like the parent that they have preference for when they're this age. And it's dealing with the rejection that you feel, right? It's a real thing. I can tell you right now, my youngest Annabelle, she just went from being daddy's girl probably over the past 2 weeks to completely mommy's girl. And it's also, understanding that she's going through emotional changes, and what that brings. So dealing with the rejection that you feel as a parent and just handling that appropriately. I think that's probably the one thing I wasn't ready for when I became a dad. I think, I didn't really realize that I would feel rejected or have those feelings or, envy my wife at some points. And then I guess maybe not envy her at some points when they won't leave her alone continuously. But to Paul's point, what we've discovered, and my wife's been amazing too, is really trying to give me time with them when they prefer mom, and making sure that she can step away and get time to herself and allow me to have that physical time with them to do things, and develop that bond. And I know that it'll cycle through and eventually there'll be daddy's girl at some point and it'll cycle back. But I think just dealing with that and working with your spouse around that has been extremely helpful for me. And I, looking forward to the day that they're both daddy's girl and we can take a little bit more time together. But for the meantime, I'm going through that cycle right now. So just figuring out how to deal with that.
How about you, Ben? What wisdom can you share with us from your being such a great dad that you are?
I think more on, for me, it's, the kids are all in the sports and being able to take a step back. Like I go to their sporting events and I'm at one end of the field almost looking disinterested, and parents will come up and say, "Hey, are you not into the game?" I'm like, I am, but if my kids are playing, I'm not the one playing. I don't need to scream and shout, right? This is their time. It's not my time on the sideline to be like. So I think really it's the wisdom of letting them find their own and not do it from my lens, because, I think it was early during COVID. My Avery was 8th grade when COVID hit, so he missed out on the track season and he was just crushed. And he's like, "Yeah, but Dad, I wanted to show you that I could do the things that you did." I'm like, "Buddy, you're going to be better than me." So I think it's more of that, just being able to take a step back and let them grow rather than try to live it through them, and being, as I've said to the kids, you could be the best piano player and not be the fastest, and I'll be okay with that. You could do something that you want to do. Don't think because mom and dad ran, you need to run. So I think having, letting them find their own way rather than because this is what mom and dad did, you need to do it, is probably, finding out what they're really good at rather than what we were good at and expect them to do what we did. So I think that's probably my biggest advice. And a lot of that is, me learning to take a step back and really letting my kids' talent shine rather than um, trying to make them do something because we did it.
And it was just so much, so much great ideas and great advice here that you guys are giving for everybody out there. It's just so nice to get all of this sharing. So let's move on to sound mind, sound body. That's we all lift it here at ASICS, and we we love our philosophy, sound mind, sound body. If maybe we could just go around and say what that kind of means in your daily life or your family life. Ben, can we start with you and talk about that?
No, we try to, I try to make sure that that's part of the household, but I think it now goes to like sound mind, dad body, because I'm not at that. Probably will need to kind of take a step back and say, okay, I need to get more fit, not just from a mental standpoint, but also physically. But the kids are at the ages now where they're very active, and it's definitely something that we talk about. Mental health is so important. I think the talk space that the company provides to us, is so important for the young, especially at the ages where Paul and my kids are at, because of having to deal with COVID for the three of our kids. I mean, 3 for me, 4 for him. A little different for Sean, but I think we'll become more acutely aware of mental health, and it's been there. It's been an issue for many years, but I think through this pandemic, we've kind of seen it. I've seen it in the house, in that we need to be able to support the kids, not just on the physical side, but also really on the mental side. So we try to, especially for my youngest one, because the transition to middle school and all the things that came with that, and then you throw COVID on top of it. It's like, I don't know how I deal with it, but for her to have to be dealing with it now at her age. So really, it's just making sure the balance is there, because physically they can, she'll have soccer practice, she'll have track practice, but it's what are we doing on the mental side that's making sure that it's a well-rounded person for all three of them.
And Paul, how about you? How do you practice sound mind, sound body in your home?
So we, encourage the kids to play sports and to partake in sports. I think typically your kids, you enroll them in the things that you love initially to give them a taste for it, and they don't necessarily always take to it. My two sons both played hockey out of the gate. My first daughter, so she was the second kid, we had an artificial ice rink in our basement, so she was skating through the pylons, and I was like, hey, Lavinia, I can sign you up for hockey as well, because she looked really good, like she was great at skating. And she's like, as she navigates the puck through the cone, she's like, no thanks. And my youngest daughter, when she was 6, when she decided she wanted to play hockey, but in her mind, the reason she was interested in sports wasn't so much sound mind, sound body, but she's like, I see how much time dad spends with the boys going to the hockey rink. This means I get time with dad. So that's why she started playing hockey. So I think we've always tried to introduce sport and make it part of our lives. But I think in terms of, what the kids see from me, when COVID hit, I actually started running for literally the first time in my life. And, I put on a lot of weight over the years, and I started running. I would go every night, late at night when no one could see me because I'm slow. But regardless of how slow I am, I do go 5 times a week, typically. And over this course of 2 years, I lost 40 pounds. So the nice thing is my kids see me embrace sport and making it part of my life. And even though it's late at night, I'm still making time for it during the day. And I think it's good to show that example for your kids, and you hope they kind of also find their thing and fall in love with it.
Hey, 15 minutes and 9 seconds of exercise, right? But anyway, Sean.
For 1 mile.
That's okay. That's okay. Getting out there and moving, and it's good for it. And the sound mind, sound body leads to the sound mind, and vice versa too. So, Sean, how about you? The sound mind, sound body in your life?
Yeah, I have to go back though. I do have to say that I can't wait to buy my Sound Mind Dad Body T-shirt that Ben just coined on this call. I think we got some new products coming out after this. for me, I think it's a little different because of my kids' age. For us, when I look at it, really my kids are, my sound mind, sound body. The days are packed, between work, raising our kids, other commitments. But really for me, when I look at it, no matter what's going on in my life or at work, seeing them and spending time with them really level sets me mentally. If I don't have those dedicated hours every day, I find myself getting more stressed out, and being a little bit off balance. But I'd say like physically, like now that my youngest daughter Annabelle's walking, we go out on walks continuously. And my oldest daughter Juliana, who's turning 3, she can't run a mile or anything like that, but she bolts. She takes off every time she can, so it's a lot of chasing after her. We enjoy it. We explore. But I'd say the one biggest thing that we do with the kids is they have a baby yoga book. I don't know if you guys ever had this with your kids. They absolutely love this. So every night, pretty much before bed, Juliana will pop that thing open and we do baby yoga together, like tree pose, all the fun stuff that they do, and it's a really good time. I think for me, it's not taxing physical exercise, but there's a lot of good laughs. There's a lot of movement that happens within it, and I got to tell you, when you get to the lion's pose and we have the roars in it, both of my daughters go absolutely bananas. So it's amazing, and really that's what it's all about for us. Outside of that, it's about reading and just getting them involved in things that help them grow mentally and physically. I think is what we really focus on as a family.
Wow, where was baby yoga when I had the babies? I could have used that.
I don't know. I invented dad pose though. It's not in the book, but that's at the end when we lay down and go to sleep. So that's my daughter loves that one now too.
I'm good at that one.
I'm totally loving the sound mind dad body thing. I think this could be a thing, but I feel like I could go on, and I'm hoping that we can meet together and do this sometime. But it's really been so incredible. It's been emotional speaking to you guys, and joyful, and it's really been my honor and pleasure to have this conversation. And I hope that many dads choose in. I hope everyone has a wonderful Father's Day, and whatever that entails, barbecues or golf rounds or baby yoga. And just want to thank you guys for allowing me to ask you some questions.
That was fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.